Hi guys, we're back with another Seasons of the Year video. This month was for Writer's July, or in other words, inspired by the season of the owl. So overall, this will be kind of a short video because I don't really have a lot to say about this month and I am a bit behind, but I will go ahead and explain how this month went. Now, as you might be able to guess, this month was all about writing. Now, when I was younger, I used to write all the time. I loved writing books. I used to have a dream of being an author and having a book published. And so for many years, that's kind of what I did as a hobby. I'd done creative writing, short stories, poems, and I actually got 2 published research papers in the last 2 years. So writing has always kind of been up my alley and as a kind of a side quest for me, but I haven't done it in a long time. And one thing I used to do a lot with my friends is I would kind of be the scribe for our D&D sessions or other tabletop RPG sessions, and not only would I take simple notes to kind of keep track of the story, but it would be full-on fleshed out story, keeping track of all the dialogue and all the things that have happened, and to the point where one of our TTRPGs is over 500 pages worth of my notes and story put into a little digital book. So it's an understatement to say that I really love to write. So there are 3 things I wanted to try to accomplish this month. One of them was to make progress on the TTRPG notes, aka book that I'm writing for my friends. 2 was to write more poems. 3 was to journal more. I have not journaled in what feels like almost 10 years. Journaling used to be a really big part of my day-to-day. It was a good way for me to have like an outlet for my emotions and keep track of what's going on in my life. I haven't done that in a while, so that one had to be up there too. So let's talk about how that all went. So firstly, I didn't really make as much progress on writing the story as I wanted. However, I did complete a whole chapter's worth for the TTRPG book. I technically have 3 chapters left to go, and that's a lot of writing, that's a lot of notes I have to transcribe. Trying to remember all of the things that we did and piece that together with the notes that I took can be a lot. It takes a lot of kind of like winging it and trying to add flavor and stuff. Like, it's not going to be perfect one-to-one to how our campaign actually played out, but I can kind of get close. So now that I've kind of refreshed myself on what we did, I think it will make it easier to move a little bit forward. But I did get a chapter done and I feel good about that. Now remember, we're not here to be hard on ourselves. We're here to just make progress, move the ball, keep the ball rolling. So the next thing was poems, and there were kind of 2 sides to this. I had kind of been pondering for a while that, well, if I'm not really gonna ever publish like a normal book, why can't I do just like a poetry book? I've been really inspired lately by authors like Mary Oliver, Emily Dickinson, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. I just really love the way they write. I really love poems inspired by nature and that kind of like spiritual aspect. The ones that are like kind of mushy-gushy, but like in a somber way. I don't know how to explain it, but I've wanted to write a lot more because I used to write poems a lot when I was younger. Can't say I was any good at it, but I was like, I kind of want to take that to the next level and maybe actually work toward writing a book someday, or actually having a full-fledged like poetry book. I don't know if I'll ever like actually do anything with it, but enough pages that I can make one for myself, you know, have that kind of on my list of things that I've done, kind of like it's just part of my bucket list. So I made some progress with that. It wasn't like as much as I would have liked, as per usual, but when I sat down and I reviewed things that I had written in the past, I was like, man, this is not as good as I thought it would be, you know. Sometimes you think about those things and their memory deceives you. I really thought I had some bangers that I could start adding to this collection. No, they were bad. They were so bad, I had to staple the pages in my poetry book shut because I didn't want anyone to ever read them with how bad they were. That's how bad they were. I was very angsty. So anyway, I had to start from the ground up. And I had to kind of think about the themes that I wanted to talk about. And a lot of those themes lately have been revolving around my pets and the outdoors. I've kind of realized that I want this future potential book to be very much nature inspired by religion, and inspired by things I'm grateful for. So the collection will very much lean on odes and eulogies. It will very much weigh heavy on themes involving grief, longing, but also gratitude, just for life in general. I'm very excited with that because I think I'm the strongest when I focus on those things. And I've kind of been working toward trying to really elevate the way that I write. I feel like I focus a lot on rhyming. Favorite pattern in poetry is 3-line stanzas, usually with an AAB pattern, or all rhyming in one, the next stanza all rhyming, and so on and so forth. Poetry does not have to rhyme. And that's the one thing I've been trying to get over for a long time, is that some of the best poetry, in fact, does not rhyme. And so I've been writing things out the way I normally would write them, and then working toward reworking them. How can I rewrite this in a way that doesn't rhyme? Or maybe it does, but that's not the key focus. Now, I don't really have like anyone that I can really lean on for advice with poems, and poetry can be a very vulnerable thing. So I've had a kind of a hard time trying to figure out where I need to improve and really how to improve. I know what I want to say, but I don't think the vocabulary that I want is quite there. Now, one thing I've tried to be very intentional about in my day-to-day life usually is talking very practically and simply for most people. I don't think I have like craziest, biggest vocabulary ever, but I intentionally don't make hard efforts to speak that way, because I feel like communication is very important, and sometimes that's the most important thing, is getting the point across to somebody in a way that they can understand it. If you have certain barriers in talking to people, such as I could say one simple word and make this conversation a whole lot easier, but instead I choose to use 5 crazy words that people aren't going to understand just because I want to sound smart, like that to me defeats the whole purpose of conversation and communication. So I'm very intentional about speaking practically to people. When I write is a bit different. If I'm writing, it's like, this is a time when I can sit back and really think about what I want to say. I can be very professional in the way that I want to communicate, when I want to communicate. I can really think about the moment that I'm in and when it's important. And with poetry, it's the same thing. Like, I am trying to realize that I don't need to be as practical. I don't need to be as simple with it. The whole point of poetry sometimes is to show without saying. And also, the whole point of poetry is to say things in a very specific way. It's not always about, can someone understand it? It's sometimes about like the emotion behind it, or what you want to get out of your chest in the way that you want. It's to think very uniquely about the sentences that you're making and the points that you're making. And sometimes it's even left up to interpretation. So I'm trying to realize that when I'm writing poetry specifically, that the whole point is to be a little bit unique about it, to be a little bit weird about it. So really thinking more intentional about the words that I'm using has like had me think a lot differently about different ways to say something, and that's really fun. And it's just something I haven't really done in a long time because I haven't really thought about it. And so it's been a really nice challenge to get back into, and I think I've made a lot of improvements. Now, another side to this poetry arc is that I've also been getting really into blackout poetry. A while ago, I got the Miss Peregrine series, and the 3rd book, Library of Souls, I got damaged in the mail. I ended up replacing it with a second copy, but Amazon did not make me return the first torn up copy. So I got to keep that one, and I've been using that one as like my sole surface for practicing blackout poetry. And I have to say, that's been so fun. I'm sure you've probably seen it before, but it's basically where you take a page of something, a book, a newspaper article, whatever, and you go and you just black out words that you don't want to use and leave open words that you do, and you make a poem with just your options of vocabulary that you have on the page. What I found that I really like about using Library of Souls is that Ransom Riggs is an amazing writer. Like, I'm sure if you've read the Miss Peregrine series, you already know that. But his vocabulary is like immaculate. His description's beautiful. He uses words I would never think to use, and he uses it in such a way that and is very unique and very well written, even though it's targeted at a very young or a younger audience. And I think that's important because it introduces younger audience to a wider vocabulary. You can say a lot more, and I think it elevates their writing level, their reading level. I've always loved that about this series particularly. That was one of my favorite things about that series, was just how well written, how he wrote everything. And so it's been really fun because I feel like I got lucky that Ransom Riggs just gave me a great vocabulary and surface to practice on, and so I think that would be really cool. It would be really nice one day to also publish some blackout poetry, obviously giving credit to the author whose surface you're using. I don't really know how common that is, but if anybody knows, feel free to leave a comment below, because I would like to kind of include that one day if I ever do write a book, but obviously I don't want to step on any toes, but I give credit where credit's due. And if you've never read the Miss Peregrine series, definitely do. It's Ransom Riggs, great writer. I don't really know if I'm going to share any of my poetry here. It's kind of like personal, and some of them aren't done yet, but if I do, I might share some snippets of the blackout poetry. I know I did a spoken poetry like monologue or voiceover in a TikTok video a while back. Maybe I'll share that as a reel sometime. But all I have to say is I think it's been very fun, and I haven't written a ton, but I think I got about 5 normal poems done and maybe like 2 or 3 blackout poems. So I think that's a pretty good win for July, considering all things considering. And the last thing on my list for this month was to journal. I haven't journaled in quite a while, probably between 5 to 10 years. Like truly journaled the way that I used to. It used to be an everyday outlet for me. I would journal all the time. It was just kind of a way to get things out of my system. And then one day I kind of just decided, like, I don't know, like I'm too old for that. I don't need to do that anymore. But there was a point in time when I did it a lot more like spiritually, and I would kind of think about quotes that I would come across, or poems that I would come across, or books I would read. And I like to look at things as like everything happens for a reason. Like there's got to be some meaning behind it, you know? And I would often write about those things and talk about them and like reframe those things to give me a more positive outlook on life, be more gratuitous, and think more positively just in general about kind of hard to explain without giving too much detail, to be honest. But it used to be a big part of my daily life, to be honest. And then I don't know, I kind of went through a big rough patch. Kind of made me like scared to read things that I used to write, and scared to write about things that were going on, because one of the hard parts about journaling is, for me anyway, it feels like that is one way that you face pain like head on. In my mind, write it down, and that's my way to deal with it. Like you feel the pain and then you move on, you let it go, let it move through you, and you can't run from it, you can't try and shove it down, you just have to feel it and let it pass through you. And I don't know if you've ever read Tuesdays with Morrie, but Morrie's philosophy was very much that way too. It's like you can't really run from these things. You just have to feel it and let it move through you and move on. Because if you don't, it'll be chasing you forever. You just gotta let it pass. And the hard thing about journaling is whenever you write about those things, like you're forced to face it, you're forced to feel it. And I don't know, it just got kind of to a point where that was difficult. That was difficult to do. And, you know, going through your like early 20s, you go through a lot of like big life changes, big changes in yourself, and it's kind of hard to see and go back and read things that I had like written before and like see how much my opinions were changing so rapidly about things I used to write about. And I don't know, it's just like interesting to like physically have a record of my mind through life. But it's also scary because it's like, okay, who is this person I'm becoming? Like, why are my opinions about these things changing? And it's kind of scary. So that was hard, but I think I'm like in a much better state of mind, a much better place in my life, that I finally decided to take the leap and try journaling again. And I have to say, like, I just needed to bite the bullet. I needed to rip the Band-Aid off and do it, and I'm glad I did. I sat down for 20 minutes, wrote like 4 pages, my little book, and I feel good about it. I feel good. I feel like I got through the hurdle that's been sitting there for a while for me, and that's a win if I saw one. So Now, I'm getting this video out kind of late because just like July has been kind of a crazy month for me. With that said, it's only going to get crazier and ramp up more. Now, even though I still have August through December to do for seasons of the year, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. I'm going to try my best, but at least for August, I'm almost 100% going to say August is going to be a wash. It's going to be a break. And maybe I'll pick back up on this video by the end of September. We'll see. I'm really hoping I can make it longer because I really wanted to make it to Inktober. I spoiler alert, I really wanted to do that this year. But, you know, we're not going to be hard on ourselves. We're not going to make this an obligation, because it never was. It was just kind of a way to challenge myself every month with something new, and I think I've done pretty good so far. I'm very happy with how it's been going, so we're not going to worry about it. We're not going to stress about it. I'm not going to stress about it. You're not going to stress about it. If you start something like this, don't be that hard, you know? At the end of the day, this is just a fun way to try and improve yourself and see how it goes. Just make those strides, keep the ball rolling. Well, with all that being said, that's really all I have for this video. As always, thank you guys for watching. See you guys again soon.